Hi, thanks for joining me today. My name is Lena, and I am a stay at home mom of two boys, and I'm a hobby crafter sharing my projects on YouTube. And this is my first ever video, so I'm super excited about it. And I am going to be making, over the course of however long it takes me, a small lap quilt, and I'm going to attempt to hand quilt it. And I'm making it out of some remnant fabric I have from a recent project I did, which I'll show over here. I made these really cute toddler vests, but I had quite a bit of leftover fabric. Um, so I wanted to make something fun and girly out of that too. So let's get started and get into the process. I'm really excited about it. I have it all mapped out in my head. But before we do that, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you find this video interesting and you want to come along with me on this journey, and ring the notification bell if you want to see more stuff from me and get notified of it. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so it's actually been a couple days since I filmed that last intro because I filmed the intro, I divided up all the squares, I talked to the project, and then I realized my microphone ran out of battery, so there was no audio on any of that stuff. So to recap, I am making a quilt, and I have this quilt block builder card deck that basically has these cards in it you can select based on their pattern, and on the back it tells you all the cuts that you need to make and the measurements that those cuts need to be for different squares sizes. So I'm making 10-inch squares, and you can see on the quilt block diagram, I guess it is, it tells you for a 10-inch square all the different cuts that you need to make. So I went ahead, and before I actually started filming, I cut out all of my squares that I have here. I divided them all up into their little stacks for building the actual quilt. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with all the half square triangles that I need to make. So these are all of them for the whole quilt. I've divided up, and I'm going to use a technique called chain piecing, which I've never done before, but it seems pretty simple. And the idea is that you basically feed your fabric through the machine, and then instead of snipping the fabric and putting the next one in and then snipping and that, you just stitch a little bit so there's some thread in between, and you just keep feeding them through until you're done. So I'm going to try that. Hopefully it'll make it faster, and let's just get sewing. Probably a good time to mention that because I'm a stay-at-home mom and I'm taking care of my kids during the day, I also do freelancing work on the side. So my time to sew really is just in the evenings, and so when I'm doing a large project like this, it can take me quite a while, sometimes even months to finish. So when you're watching this video and you see me change outfits a million times, that is because it's taking me a long time to finish the project, and I can only sew for about, I don't know, probably a maximum of 2 hours at a time. So hence the new outfit from now to my intro, and you'll see quite a bit of my wardrobe, I'm sure, in every video, but it's okay because it's all about making progress, and this is a hobby that I get to do in my free time. I do it after my kiddos are in bed and all snuggled up for the night, so I am just appreciative that I get any time at all to do something like this that's fun. kind of. I'm halfway. So I went in one direction, but since I'm getting 2 triangles out of each of these squares, I sewed a 1/4 inch on one side from the center, and now I need to go back and sew a 1/4 inch on the other side, and then I will cut them apart from each other and snip them all down the center, and then I get 2 triangles for each square that I did. So that's the next step. It is about 9 o'clock now, so I'll probably do the second half tomorrow and cut them tomorrow, and then we can get to sewing the actual blocks together, which I'm really excited about. So long for now, and I'll see you next time. Okay, so do me a favor and just ignore the heatless curl situation that's going on my head. I'm always optimistic that my heatless curls will turn out well, and they never do, but I'm just going to keep trying until I figure out the formula. But anyways, it's been about 3 days since I finished chain piecing everything together. And so today I'm going to be cutting them all apart from each other and snipping them in half to get our little half square triangles that will look kind of like that when we're done. So that's my only goal for today. Let's do it. Oh, shoot. I totally just cut the tip off of that one. Oops. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, some of these are pretty sketchy, but like, we will get through it. Okay. Okay, now I just need to do that like 50 more times. Okay, I stayed up late last night to get this done. Let's see if I can do this without hitting the camera too much, but we have all of our pieces finally cut and pressed. And so now today we get to start assembling the blocks. So I think what I'm going to do just to start is put together one of each block so I can see what they look like together. And then from there on out, it's just piecing them all together one by one. Okay, so now that I'm to the point of assembling these quilt blocks, I'm realizing kind of an error that I made. So for this quilt block, this square that's going to go in the middle of my block was originally supposed to be cut into 4 squares. And I'm realizing now that was because I need to be able to sew each of these in rows, but I didn't do it that way. So I'm going to get a little bit creative, and I'm going to sew these 2 pieces together and then sew them to one edge of the quilt block on 2 sides, and then I'll sew, that'll be, my middle row, and then I'll sew the top and the bottom to that. So it'll just take a little bit of thinking, but that is okay. We will do it and it'll be fine. Okay, so originally I had the design looking like this in the middle, but I've decided I don't want to do that, and I want to make it almost like a sawtooth star, and I want the purple to be turned out.
So I'm going to pick these and do it the other way and see what that looks like. So she's cute, but we got problems. Look at how mismatched these points are. And I know exactly why. It's because I don't think that I added the seam allowance to the edges of this square to account for the fact that I wasn't cutting them out as individual like squares. And then I also cut these pink ones too small. So this quilt is just gonna be a bit, how should I say, shabby chic. You know what? I think it's so cute. Just don't look too close. It still works. Okay, so now that I've done one quilt block, I think I know the order of operations I'm gonna go in to sew the rest of these. I'm gonna sew together all these purple and yellow half square triangles first, and then I will sew the rows from there. So the top row is going to have the two pink squares on it as well as the bottom row, and then the middle row, it's like kind of hard to see. Hopefully I'm not banging into the mic too much. And then the middle row is the one with this floral square. So I think that's going to go well, and like I said, it'll be a bit rustic, but I still think it's going to come out really cute, and it's notes for next time. If I'm changing things, I need to be on it with the measurements. And the other thing I'm learning that I don't know how to solve yet is that I feel like I'm having a lot of trouble with my machine starting some of these pieces together. When I was sewing together the half square triangles, pretty much every time my machine wanted to eat the fabric. So I don't know what that was about. If you have any tips for that, if anybody sees this video, number one. Number two, if anybody sees this video who quilts and has tips for me on how to do that in a better way, please let me know, because I don't know what I can change. Maybe my needle is dull. That's probably what it is. Okay, well, block one done. We're back. And after doing some math, I think I can save these quilt blocks from all being just horribly disfigured. And I think the secret is in these half square triangles. Pretty much what is going on is that these pink squares are 3 inches and these middle squares are 6 inches, and these babies in the middle are, I think, 3 3/8 inches. And that's my bad because I just did not double check the measurements of the other squares before I was chopping away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim all of these to also be 3 inches so that when I put them together, they match up with the width of the middle square, and then everything should come out as planned. And if I have to redo this quilt block at the very end because it's just a monstrosity compared to the other ones, then I will do that. But I think for now, this is going to work. So I'm going to trim these down. I'm going to make one more of these quilt blocks before I move on to the other one to test out. And if it works, then I'll cut all of these down to 3 by 3 inch squares. So I just sewed this, and again, when I started, my machine ate the beginning of my square, and then they got all mismatched, and now it's like almost a 1/4 inch off. So we will be redoing this one. Okay, my tension is between my 4 and my 5, and I'm wondering if this is part of the source of my problem, so I'm going to turn that sucker down a little and see if that helps me. Okay, that is much better. Still not perfect, but I will take it. Okay, I feel like adjusting the tension helped, but I also just used my wheel on the first part when it's going through the seams, and I think that helped too. Cute. All right, let's keep going. Guys, we did it. Look at this. Okay. I see some matching corners here. 3 out of 4 is pretty good for fixing my mistakes. For comparison, this was the first one I did. We love her, but she's just not what we were going for. This is what we were going for. So excited. Okay, so we finished 2 quilt blocks, and one came out okay. I might have to redo it, and the other one came out satisfactory. So I'm just gonna keep plugging away at making these quilt blocks, but honestly, I feel like this video is gonna have to be a multiple part thing because this is gonna take me a long time. I think I underestimated how long this would take me, number one, and number two, the video would be like an hour and a half long if I just kept it all in one. So I might cut it off here and say, you know, this is my prep work video and we did some testing, we did some learning. Takeaways are look at the measurements that you actually need for the squares before you cut them so you don't have to fix it later. I think that's the most important one. And then the second one is adjust your thread tension so that your machine does not eat your fabric. I did learn that. The third, I'm gonna have to get better at pressing my fabric when I'm ironing it because I really do think that played a part in the half square triangle debacle, is that my fabric stretched out and got a little bit warped because I was moving my iron when I was pressing them when really I should have just kind of been keeping it still so it didn't stretch out. And I think that those are my big takeaways from this part of the process. So I'm just going to keep plugging away at these quilt blocks, and I'll start up the next video when probably I start the second quilt block. which is a 9 patch variation. So once I get all of these done, I'll see you again. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me on this journey of learning how to sew, sew better, sew more things, sew quilts. I'm really excited that you're here, and I really appreciate your support of this little hobby of mine. It's so fun to be able to, one, learn how to do this, and then two, create these little video diaries that I can later look back on and see how far I've come, hopefully. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you like this video, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.